Good morning, everyone. Happy International Happiness Day. I didn't realize that was a thing until I turned on Facebook this morning. I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. Open. All right, first question there. Do you know of any product restrictions in Australia? Yeah, a ton. We used to enforce Australia requirements on the US platform because we had so many people buying from Australia and it was a liability issue there. Um, so there's a bunch of safety requirements, the same as the US has safety requirements, but they're not the same safety requirements. Australia is kind of a weird one because it's like halfway between EU and North America. So US and Canada are mostly aligned, mostly. You can, generally speaking, feel safe about a lot of products going between the US and Canada. There's definitely some major differences, but mostly you can feel safe there. But Australia is kind of like it's like EU light, really. And so there's a bunch of things there that aren't okay to sell. Bunch of things here that aren't okay to sell there. So you do need to check. The ones that we looked at the most, of course, were children's products. So that's an obvious one. You also have, of course, a different plug system, different electrical system, so be careful there. And then the other one that came up on a regular basis is that they have a very different requirement around pesticides and other kinds of chemicals. So check that. Depending on your product, it should be fairly easy to research. They have some pretty good websites in Australia. Now, the one thing that I would say is that Amazon probably hasn't caught up in Australia yet. So you know how restricted products has been around for quite some time in North America, Europe, Japan, China, India, etc. It hasn't been around very long in Australia, so only the very serious ones will be there, and then they'll be adding rules as they go. So just because you can sell something now doesn't mean that you can sell something in future. Okay, so I'll just say that. Kathy asks, if products are labeled for the US, are they okay in Australia? It depends on the product. There are very specific labeling laws in Australia that you do need to make sure are met. I actually saw something really interesting, and the same thing happens here, of course, right? So my very favorite chocolate bar is Milka, and Milka is, did it work? No, it didn't. It didn't stop being blue. So Milka is, I believe it's Swiss. In any case, it's from Europe, and it's absolutely amazing. It's my very favorite. I had it all the time when I lived in Austria. But you can't import it here because they don't actually have a distributor here. They don't package or label it for the US. So I found it, my brother found it actually in a market in just a little bit north of Seattle. And what they had done is they'd actually printed out a whole new label and stuck it onto the back so that it would be compliant with US labeling law. So something like that, where the product itself is perfectly safe, but the labeling might not be, then you might want to just put a sticker on to make sure that it meets the new requirements so that you don't get in any trouble. And it was really just that. They just printed a sticker and they made it purple because milk is purple, and they printed it and put it right on and then sold the product in the stores. So yeah, grocery is definitely going to have that problem because every country has their own labeling laws for food. So just because something is legal to sell there, which most food is going to be just fine to sell there, you do need to make sure that the labeling is correct. And most things that are made for the US are done in imperial system. Yay. And so you have, pounds and ounces. And in Australia, you need to make sure that they legally say grams and kilos. That's the most basic thing that needs to be fixed. Man, what is up with the whatever. Anyway, sorry, I keep getting distracted by the weird lighting. So you just need to make sure that it's got the correct labeling. It shouldn't be that difficult to do, and I just suggest a sticker. As long as it's there, then they don't really care that much. Okay, next question. Any thoughts on the best ad strategy for products that have a common function? For example, a door stopper is a common item that has few keywords for buyers. Our products are unique, but the purpose is common. How do I get the ads to show in a very dense product environment? So the ones that are cheapest are product ads. So for example, making sure that yours shows, and make sure you bid out as high as you can so that you show up first on the sponsored ad section. You want to make sure that you're bidding on other door stoppers. You want to make sure that you're bidding on doors. You want to make sure that you're bidding on door hinges. You want to make sure that you're bidding on welcome mats. So basically anything that would work with a door, then you would want to make sure that you're having a product ad. So a lot of times the product ad listings that Amazon suggests are just the exact substitute. So you want to make sure you go in there and add your own ASIN list to target for those ads. That's, I think, the most obvious thing is that you need to put in your own ASIN list and comparison products. And then for just in general, you can do some keywording to do that. What I usually do with keyword approaches when there's kind of a more broad application like that, especially if you've got a little bit of sales history, you go into the listing, go down to customers who also bought. So you just go way, way down. It's usually the very bottom. Sometimes it's randomly in the middle. They move these widgets around depending on the category. And you want the ones for customers who also bought, or customers also shopped for. So those are the two that are most useful. Then you go into those ones and then do a reverse ASIN lookup on those. So one thing that we found with another client that was in the home space is we could see the exact profile of their client, like the super hippie granola, like urban yuppie mom. Like that was that was exactly the profile. The products that they bought along with the client's product was like 7th generation soap, and what was it? It was like bamboo decorations and organic cotton clothes and bamboo fiber diapers. Like, it was pretty funny. And then what you do is you then take those products and then target your product against those as well. But you want to do product targeting especially, as well as keyword targeting. Keyword targeting is getting so crowded and so expensive in some places that we've still gotten some good results with product targeting. Sometimes where keyword targeting can get no lower than about 20%. For ACOS, we're actually getting between 5 and 7% on product targeting. Now, product targeting, you do have to be careful because sometimes product targeting is junk. So, you need to remove the products that aren't very good, but we're getting some really good results on product targeting so far. Okay, so the next thing, we also want to remind everyone that we do have the storefront challenge starting in, gosh, it's not even 2 weeks now. It's getting close. And that starts on Monday, April 1st, not an April Fool's joke. We were just talking, actually, my team and I on Monday, we were just talking about the work that we were doing on a YouTube account for a client. And I was saying, okay, so you got everything uploaded, right? And you got all the hashtags on, because there's a tool that we use for hashtagging that Christina found, which is fantastic. And for basically, you just hashtag the heck out of the thing to try to get the search results in Google. But then once you get people there, where do they go? Well, what you want to do is you actually want to do a tagged URL in the storefront. That way you can track the performance of each of your different videos. And so what you actually do is you do a different tag per video, and then you see which one is actually getting you the most success. So you can actually track cool stuff like that with storefronts. And you may be asking, can I do that with my detail page? And the answer is nope, no soup for you. They have made this possible with storefronts, and you can track different landing pages on your storefront. So you could test it, right? So if you have one video and you send it to your homepage in your storefront, or one video and you send it to a single landing page, or you have another video and you send it to a different landing page for a different customer avatar, you can actually see which one performs the best. On your detail page, first of all, you've only got one detail page. You've only got one chance to convince someone to buy. And second, you don't get any details, right? So they don't tell you what's going on or how it's going on. So I'm super excited because there's lots of really cool things that the storefront can give you. And I'm excited to share those with you. Okay, next question. Has anyone noticed higher fees? I know oversized items are getting a bump on February 29th, but all of our products are less than £1. I'm not sure what happened. Is my best bet to contact support to see what they say? Yeah, so if your stuff was less than £1, you should not have had an increase. There wasn't any planned increase for folks with that size. So if you have higher fees, Amazon could have automatically resized your product. Happens all the time, unfortunately. So if you had a poly bag that was sticking out to the side, or if you had two products that came through together, kind of sometimes they get stuck together and measured that way, then you need to contact Amazon and ask them to do a remeasurement. They'll only do one remeasurement a month, typically. So just, know that it's kind of annoying when that happens. The other thing is that sometimes we've had a problem where returns come back and they're in a different package than the one that you send out, and that's what gets measured, and that can be really annoying. So the measurements will be different than what you have. So definitely have them remeasure it, because there shouldn't have been any change for something less than £1. Okay. All right. Is it possible for a freight company to apply for preferred status at Amazon? I'm in Canada, and our LTL shipments are always after hours appointments, turning a $100 charge to double or triple the price. Yikes. So I need to research this because this is something that I don't know. I actually saw this in the Facebook group yesterday and was like, huh, that's an interesting question. So I actually don't know on that one. Typically, we are only shipping for locally. So if we're doing Canada, it's Canada to Canada or US to US, not from Canada into the US. The simplest solution would be to have it cross-docked and take it to a location where you can have a different trucking company pick it up. But then I don't know if that's any easier or any harder than just paying the extra $100. So I would suspect that given the human labor, it's probably going to be more expensive to try to switch the companies. So I will take a look into that, but I would suspect that unless you have a company in Canada that is actually working on getting set up for that, the likelihood is that they don't have it, but I can definitely take a look at that. Okay, next question. If I run a pay-per-click ad, I get charged for the click regardless of sales, right? Yes, you do. That's the pay-per-click part. As soon as somebody clicks, you pay. Now, if you have a bunch of impressions and people don't click, then you don't pay. So the part that's good about that is if your listing is terrible and the image is terrible and nobody likes you, you don't pay. You only pay if someone likes you enough to click, and then they don't like you after that. So that gives you actually a good space to think. If you are liked enough to click, if people are like, oh, this is really interesting, I really like this, I'm going to click and learn more, and then they don't buy, then you have a problem with your page, right? So that's something to think about. If somebody clicked for a particular reason and then they didn't buy or consistently didn't buy for particular search reasons, then that's a place where you can go. So we have a client who continuously, in the skincare space, who continuously gets clicks for rhododendron fields, various versions of rhododendron fields, and they get lots of clicks for it, but they don't necessarily. Oh, and now it's back. That's weird. They get lots of clicks for it, but they don't really get a lot of sales for it. And so what we did was we went and looked at the different pages that had Rhododendron Fields products and looked at the Rhododendron Fields website to see what it was that customers were expecting when they clicked on a Rhododendron Fields product and what they weren't getting out of the client's page. And so basically started making changes to the page to more reflect the way that Rhododendron Fields pitches their stuff, because literally it was a whole bunch of clicks coming in from Rhododendron Fields as a search term. And so we'll see the results because we just started making these changes. But that's one direction that you can go. There was just a lot of clicks, a lot that we were paying for, and not a lot of movement. So it just means something was not meeting their expectation when they actually landed on the page. Okay. Next is if I have a piggybacker on my listing who has the buy box and makes the sale, do I get charged for the click? I have a client who is very upset that he is paying for someone else's sales when that person is underpricing him in his buy box to get the sale. Essentially, he is paying for the other sales. He's not paying. So that's something to be really clear on. You only get the PPC ad to show when you are actually winning the buy box. So that's the reason why, even if you're paying quite a lot for ads, you actually won't be paying for that ad if your hijackers take over your page entirely. You pay nothing for ads, in fact. So that's something to keep in mind. The only difference is if you have a sponsored brand campaign that goes to a product list. If you have a sponsored brand campaign that goes to a product list, then someone else could get the sale, absolutely. If you're doing sponsored product ads, then no, they're not going to get the sale. Okay? So no freaking out about that. You should be more freaked out about the fact that there's a hijacker on the listing than the pay-per-click ads, because that's not a problem. Okay, so next is I received a notice today for infringing on a copyrighted product. It wasn't restricted and purchased through an online wholesaler. My listing was pulled down along with 2 other companies. What is the best course of action for my account health with Amazon? Okay, so the best course of action is to submit an appeal. And if you don't want to submit an appeal that shows your ignorance, okay? This is really critical. A lot of people will go and they'll try to submit appeal to Amazon because they think that Amazon cares. Amazon does not care. So your ignorance or your confusion is not an excuse. My favorite kind of comparison here is the idea of signing a contract that you don't understand and then afterwards saying, well, I didn't understand what I was getting into because I just didn't understand the words. Lack of knowledge is never a justifiable defense in any sort of court of law. You signed it, deal. Amazon feels exactly the same way. If you put it up there and you chose to put it up there, then it's your problem and your fault. Now deal with it. So I really caution people to respond to Amazon on stuff like this that isn't like, especially infringing things like this. If it's only one warning and you don't actually know what's going on, like this person, the way that they're describing this, it wasn't restricted and purchased through an online wholesaler. The way that that's written makes me think that they don't know enough about what Amazon's requiring, that they could make themselves look really ignorant in front of an Amazon investigator. So whenever you're not 100% certain, if you're not coming in there saying, okay, this is the policy, this is how it works, this is exactly what's happening, then you should just not respond to Amazon. Just straight up. And the reason why I think that's so critical is because as soon as you tell Amazon, essentially, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm ignorant, they might make a mark on your record and it's there in notes saying, I think this seller has a problem, I think the seller this or that. Because of course they're constantly keeping track. That's how they enforce on sellers. That's how they keep records. That's how they move forward, right? So if you go in there with something that makes you look dumb, they're going to keep track of that too. So that's the only thing I would say is the way that this person is writing. I don't feel confident telling them to respond, but normally what I would say is you need to respond to Amazon and give a reasonable defense as to why it was a reasonable approach that you took. And that's part of the plan of action thing. They aren't requiring it in a lot of ways, but if you don't send something in, then your account basically just has a negative mark against you. So for something like that, generally speaking, you should respond, but only respond if you feel 100% confident and have someone else take a look at the account or what you're doing or something, because I've seen a lot of people who are 100% confident and are 100% wrong, especially with performance notifications. People just really screw that up a lot. Okay, can you create a shipping plan after closing your listing? No. Why would you create a shipping plan after closing your listing? That's a confusing question. You can only create shipping plans on active listings. Okay, where do you think the market is going for small sellers within the next decade? That's kind of a loaded question, because the small seller question, there's a lot of different kinds of small sellers, right? So you could be a small drop shipper, you could be a small retail arbitrager, you could be a small liquidation seller, you could be a small private labeler, you could be a small brand owner. And I do separate private label and brand owners. So for small sellers, it's not so much that you're small, it's what you're doing while you're small. I think that the time of using dropship on Amazon safely is over, definitely. So don't bother doing that. I think retail arbitrage is getting close to being over, depending on the product and depending on if you use bundle strategies, of course. Now, if you're talking about small for liquidation, I still think there's a huge opportunity for liquidation. I think you have to be careful, but I think there's still a huge opportunity there. But the real growth space for small businesses on Amazon is really in private label and brand owning, but especially brand owning. So private label is the concept of taking somebody else's already completed product and adding your brand or packaging on top of it and calling it good. If you're just doing that, if you're not adding any value whatsoever, if you're just buying something off the shelf and reselling it, I don't really think there's a huge opportunity for you going into future. There's just so much competition. It's not worth it. But when you can make a change and actually have something of value to add to people, such as brand owners do, whether they're adding it through a great community, such as like an Instagram community. I mean, Kylie Jenner has just made a crap ton based on her internet community. If you can offer value in terms of the actual features of the product, something that is unique, that's interesting to you, that no other brand has, then you're going to do well regardless of your size. So I don't think that there's any problem with small sellers per se, because plenty of people start out small. The thing that will be problematic in future is, do you have anything unique to offer? And if you don't, then go back to the drawing board, because there's plenty of people just like you who don't have anything unique to offer. So I don't think it's small so much as non-unique. So retail arbitrage, drop shipping, to some degree liquidation. It's just that liquidation is so darn cheap that even if you're not differentiated, you'll eventually make a profit. That's just a difference with liquidation. Okay, what do you believe are the cardinal sins of selling on Amazon? Ones that new and seasoned sellers alike may be guilty of committing, even unknowingly. Okay, I have a few of these. My number one thing that drives me batty these days is people thinking that giveaways through giveaway companies are okay with terms of service. They're not. Drives me nuts. And then anytime you ever go talk to them at their booths or whatever, or look at their website, they're like, oh, we're totally compliant. No, you're not. You're not. It's not compliant. Just drives me crazy. It's clearly prohibited in the terms and conditions. The terms say that any manipulation of rank is prohibited. And the whole purpose of a giveaway to launch your product is to manipulate the rank. That's the whole point. So it's silly. So that's one of the ones that drive me crazy because that's an obvious one. It's clearly prohibited. There's whole businesses that are entirely built around it, and then they lie to people saying that it's allowed. Now, the actual enforcement on that is fairly limited. Amazon is not consistently enforcing on that. They're not consistently telling people, if you do this, you're going to get shut down, because the way that they track it is different. They have done it in multiple cases that I've seen when people have used giveaways multiple times throughout the life cycle of their product. So if you've already launched it and then 6 months later you run a giveaway and then 3 months later you run another giveaway, I have seen it enforced there. I have not generally seen it enforced at the beginning of a launch, because there are lots of reasons why there might be a random jump in sales at the beginning of a product launch, like influencers or something in the newspaper or on somebody's favorite things list or whatever. So Amazon generally is careful about enforcing at the beginning of a product's life cycle. But after that, you better be really darn careful about what kind of tools you use or what you let people tell you is real. So that, to me, not knowing what the actual T&Cs are and relying on someone else to tell you that they're compliant, that's a cardinal sin, absolutely. And so that, to me, is just like, that's the number one thing, is if you let some other service tell you that it's allowed and then call it good, then that's dumb. It's your business. They're not going to get shut down. They're laughing all the way to the bank with their service. You're the one who's going to suffer. So to me, that's the number one thing. The other one is this idea that somehow the competitor is always out to get you. I would say that people who basically run their entire business focused on their competition rather than focused on having the best offering or the best product or the best page, if they're constantly focused on their competition. Now, hijackers on your listing, that's an exception. That's an important thing to go after. But just constantly focusing, what's the competitor ranking for? Is the competitor in stock? Is the competitor getting mad at me? Is the competitor doing this? It's exhausting. If you're spending that much time and mind share, like, you only have so much amount of energy during the day, so much amount of heart during the day. And if you spend all of it on your competitor and what the competitor is doing, then you're not spending it on what you should be doing and serving your customers best. Amazon is a customer obsessed company. Amazon is never worried about what competitors are doing, number one. They always worry about what the customers want, number one, because the customers are what make or break your business. If you are doing something awesome that your customers love and you're not getting hijacked, that's the only time where you should focus on your competitors first, is if your listing is getting hijacked and it's ruining your whole thing. Otherwise, focus on being the best for your customers that you can be, and don't worry about your competitors. It's not relevant. If you have a product that everyone wants, that everyone loves, and you're presenting it in a way that they understand that it's what they want and love, then your competitors don't matter. And that's something that I think a lot of people just spend so much time and mental energy and effort and heart focused on something that doesn't matter to their business long term. Okay. All right. Just looking at the comments here. But those are my two cardinal sins for me today, is relying on someone else to tell you it is terms of service compliant, and focusing so much on the competitors that you forget about your own business. And yes, when you say absolutely, the services always will disagree, because that's their business model, and they're going to make money off of you regardless. So they don't care. And giveaways and review requests are the same. Yeah, so you're not supposed to do any kind of marketing follow-up. Now, for the review requests, the thing that's interesting about that is I have seen people taken down for the giveaways. So for manipulating rank, absolutely. I have never seen anyone taken down for review requests or even warned for review requests. So the thing that's interesting about that is that while Amazon expressly prohibits marketing emails going out, which is what everyone's doing with the review requests, and you're not allowed to use URLs, and there's a whole bunch of details in that, I have literally never seen anyone ever get in trouble. And so based on that, my thing is always, the details of the terms are all about making things better for customers, right? That's all Amazon cares about. Customer obsessed. That's what we were just talking about. It's all about customer obsession. So when you're manipulating rank, that harms the customer experience because the one that customers like best isn't actually showing up at the top. The one where you manipulated the rank is. So what kind of harm is there with the review request? Well, the harm that they have taken people down for is manipulating the results of reviews. So if you said, if you didn't like it, email me. If you did like it, then leave me a review. They have taken people down for manipulating that. I have never seen anyone taken down for a completely solid review request where they put in a link to like their URL or to their page with a promotion and said, hey, I hope you really like this. Here's a promotion so you can go buy it. Literally never seen anyone taken down for that because I think for them, first of all, Amazon's making more money that way, right? They're actually getting sales through that approach. But the other thing is that it's not actually harming customers. In some ways, it's making customers more happy. So you have to be careful, too, that the whole point of the terms of service requirements, the details, everything is to protect the customer and a lot to protect Amazon from liability. So if your activities with regard to your page, with regard to your review requests, if it's helping customers and not violating any laws, Amazon will often leave you alone. They have bigger fish to fry. They're looking for people who harm customers first. So we've seen people violate image requirements. We've seen people violate labeling requirements on their page, a whole bunch of stuff. And those ones were not enforced upon because they just weren't considered harmful to the customer. So keep that in mind too. Even if something isn't expressly prohibited, if it's harmful to a customer, if it's some clever new thing that somebody came up with, but that harms a customer, you can get in trouble for it, even if it's not explicitly in the terms of service. But you can do lots of things that are explicitly prohibited, like review requests with marketing URLs, and Amazon won't do anything because it's not harmful to customers. So that part can be kind of confusing and frustrating for folks, where I see people who are like, they're not following the image requirements. Well, no, of course they're not. But they're also not adding any guarantee language, which is the only thing that Amazon really wants to enforce on because the FTC regulates that. And you can't have, non-compliant pictures when the FTC is regulating guarantees and labels about satisfaction guaranteed, that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind at the back of your mind that Amazon is about customer obsession and not getting into trouble, reducing their liability. If what you're doing doesn't cause customer harm and doesn't cause Amazon liability, they probably aren't going to pay attention. Just to keep in mind. Okay. I love that. Cascadia class on how to eliminate hijackers. Man, it's tough. It's definitely tough. Okay. I received notifications today saying certain Nike ASINs that are already listed will no longer be available after 5/19/19 and no FBA for them effective immediately. So far, this has affected at least 6 random clothing items, mostly kid stuff. I've gotten 1 ASIN per email over the past several hours. What does this mean? This means that they're tightening it up. So they probably had a bunch of counterfeits, especially for the kid stuff. It's very concerning when there's counterfeits with the kid stuff, because the counterfeits are often not safety tested, and so they're actually dangerous for the kids to wear. So what I suspect is that they've just been pushing through more counterfeit warnings and counterfeit issues, and so they have a whole process to decide what things are most risky and what things are least risky. And then the things that are more risky, and it's all a ongoing measurement process for them. And the things that are most risky will eventually get taken down from sellers, just because there's too many sellers who actually think they're getting real Nike products from somebody's back of their truck. And I don't want to be mean to anybody, but the fact is there's a lot of small sellers who are either naive, very foolish, or just liars. And it's hard for Amazon to tell which, and it's not really their job to tell which. It's their job to protect their customer. And if there's too many sellers who are causing Amazon and Nike problems and therefore the customer problems, they're just going to shut it down. It's not something that they don't want to do this, right? They only block things when they absolutely need to, which is why they do it by ASIN. So they don't want to block all Nike products. They don't want to block all brands. It's just that if every single thing starts becoming problematic, then they eventually have to. They like to do it by ASIN first. And I know that is super confusing and frustrating. Like, which ASIN's going to get taken down next? Well, it depends on how many counterfeits there are. Like how many people bought off the back of a truck. So I'm not sure if Nike is a gated brand actually. I know that a ton of Nike stuff is gated, but there's a whole bunch of problems with, you know, just in general, just problems with people selling counterfeits. People who are like, oh, I buy directly from the factory. No, you're not. I really hate that one. Don't ever believe that one. I buy directly from the factory. So either they're running a night shift and selling you counterfeit goods that are produced at the same factory, that definitely happens, or it was rejected product from the actual brand owner that shouldn't be sold anyway, or they're just lying. But don't believe that direct from the factory nonsense. I'm a retail arbitrage seller. What do I do if the clearance stickers are covering the barcodes? Put a new barcode on? Honestly, just put an FNSKU on. I don't like using UPCs in general anyway. I think that it's problematic to mix your inventory with other people. So generally speaking, I prefer to sticker over any barcodes with an FNSKU anyway. Yeah, just cover it up with a new barcode. If I had to cancel a customer's order because of internal problems, would sending them a free item as an apology be allowed? I was thinking of sending them one of the items they were ordering for free with an apology note and thanking them for their business. I'm not going to ask that they change their review. I lost half a star, but I want to acknowledge the inconvenience. So this one's problematic because you did get someone who left a bad review. So normally if they were just customer service related, I would say, sure, it's not going to cause any problems. But because there was already a negative review, I think that you're kind of treading, it's going to be problematic, but I don't think there's any problem with sending something with an apology. Just make sure that you don't mention a review at all. We have had situations where we did this, where we just sent her a free replacement pair or something. If, we got a client in shoes who constantly has like sizing concerns. So we'll send a free item and people are just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And they'll change their review, but you never mention the review. You never ask for it. You never say, I know you sent a bad review, but I'm just trying to make up for it. Don't ever say anything like that. I'm sorry you had a poor experience with me. That's not ever my intention. And I just want to make it up to you. That's totally fine. Just don't ever mention the review. Okay, so that's the only thing that's problematic with that is you always want to make sure that if you are trying to fix a customer service problem, you don't then tie it to the review that they left or didn't leave. You just want to fix their problem and make their experience great and then hope that changes their review. But don't ever mention it, right? Because that's the challenge that you can get in trouble for, especially because you have to contact them through the Amazon buyer seller messaging tool. And then if you were to do it directly in person, like to their house, like to their address, they could complain to Amazon if they're not happy with what you've done. So just make sure that you're completely neutral and just tell them you're trying to fix their customer experience. And I'm so sorry. Vanessa asks, you can't address the issue in the review. Yeah, you absolutely can. But remember, for the review response, they don't get an email directly to their, it depends on their email setup, how they get their messages. So the way that any responses to a review would look for me in Gmail is it would go into my promotions tab and I probably would never see it. So when you're thinking about handling the customer service issue, if you know who left the review, then you should absolutely handle it directly through buyer seller messaging or directly through actual mail. You should also respond to the review, but respond to the review in a different way. Responding to a review should be seen as a PR move, not as a customer service move, because most of the time the original person who responded to you doesn't actually see the response to the review. It's just the way that it's set up. So what you would prefer to do there is basically explain the situation in the response to where any other customer who is coming across it, they're just looking to see if this is the thing that they want, right? You're trying to convert them. So that's why I call it a PR response. You want them to read the negative review and be like, oh goodness, I don't know if I like that. See if there's any comments, see anyone else is having the same issue. Then they see your comment explaining the situation and be like, oh, okay, that was totally understandable. I see what happened now. That's the response you want another customer to have. The likelihood of the actual customer who left the negative review ever seeing your response is pretty low. So you really want to be focused on the next customer who comes along. How should that look to them? How should you be kind of managing that expectation for them? Okay. All right. That is it for this morning. I hope all of you have had a wonderful week. I have a little write-up that we're going to be posting sometime later today, maybe in the morning tomorrow, about my session at Prosper. It was so fun to present there with people that I've known for years, especially Peter and Chris, former Amazon colleagues. And so great to see James again from, he's, one of the founders of Prosper, and actually the founder, like the very first FBA program manager too. So everyone owes a lot to James Thompson. And we all used to work together at Amazon, and it's so great to be still working together, but now doing this. So happy to write that up and give you guys that info. Super excited to let you guys know what we talked about and some of the responses. Now, the thing that I would say for everyone who's on the fence about where to go, I was absolutely amazed at how many exhibitors were at Prosper. They moved into a different location, and so they've got a lot more space now. And wow, if you only go to one place as an exhibitor, I really feel like Prosper is it. And if you only go to one show as an Amazon seller, I also still feel like Prosper is it. It's the place to go. And a lot of that has to do with how awesome James and his co-founders are. So, all right, that's it for today. And thank you all, and happy International Happiness Day. The sun is out. It's going to be like 80 degrees here today. So I'm pretty happy. It's springtime. All the trees are blooming pink. And after the ridiculous snow season in February, I'm super happy. Usually I'm not that happy to see the sun, but man, that snow got me this year. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your day. Bye.